It certainly doesn't mention in the Talmud specifically why. Clearly, it's in the background. Anybody who reads the biblical book of Esther, drinking is all over the place. Mishta this, yayin that. It's all over.
Right, which is exactly what the Eliyah Rabbah says here.
Yeah.
But it's amazing that it took 1,500 years for anyone to make that connection and to say, he says, well, the reason that we have this mitzvah to drink on Purim is because the whole miracle happened through wine, through all these feasts of wine that we read about in the Megillah, and commemorating those feasts of wine. That's why we have this mitzvah of drinking on Purim. And sort of incidentally from that, as you said, we can infer that it's really about the wine, and so it wouldn't be appropriate to start drinking other beverages if you think this is the right reason.
Well, actually, Mike, I wouldn't say that it took all this long for this to happen. I think even Rabbah and the other sages in the Talmud were keenly aware of this. I think he's the first rabbi to really explicitly articulate this connection.
I guess you could assume it was lurking in the background, yes, and everyone knew it. I'm honestly not so sure. Like, I'm not so sure the Eliyah Rabbah is right in what he says about this. Like, why? Like,
so you're saying because of all the drinking parties,
like,
and therefore,
why would we want to imitate the thing that was the downfall of our enemies in the Megillah? But that said, as we'll see, even though nobody said this, or at least nobody articulated it explicitly until late 17th or early 18th century, and then once he says this, it just starts spreading like wildfire. This becomes like the standard explanation, at least in non-Hasidic circles. We'll talk about the Hasidic explanation later.
Yeah. Well, so this is actually fascinating. I realize not all of our listeners or viewers can read the Hebrew here, but he actually starts out with a question. He says, how can you say, since our sages have said that there are in many different places, and this is really parroting what Rabbi Cairo writes in his Beit Yosef, he quotes someone else, but that drunkenness is a great stumbling block. And you're supposed to, maybe you should avoid this. How could anybody obligate someone to do this? Certainly not our Talmudic sages. So maybe there's something good. So it sounds really actually, this is a response to make this explicit articulation about the connection with the book of Esther. That really gives good ground to stand on as to, he's really trying to support the Talmud here.
Yeah.
Right. So I think he said he's trying to balance it. Drunkenness can be a problem, but there's got to be a good wisdom in it. And it is going back to all the drinking parties in the book of Esther that somehow we're trying to commemorate.